The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched before Ambassador Chen like a cathedral built for giants and monsters alike. 100 species sat in their designated seats, watching her with eyes and sensors and organs. She had no names. 4 High Arbiter Zecthoria stood at the central podium, its crystalline body catching the light from a dozen different stars streaming through the viewing ports. Vote had just finished, and Chen knew what was coming before the Arbiter even spoke. Council has decided, Zecthoria announced, and its voice carried through every translation device in the chamber. Humanity will be expelled from the Galactic Council effective immediately. Chen stood perfectly still at the supplicant's platform. Far below the tiered seats where the council members looked down at Hershey had expected this for months now. Earth's military command had prepared her for this exact scenario around her. The chamber filled with the sounds of alien satisfaction or discomfort, depending on who was making the noise. The Torgothi delegate hissed softly from its seat, and Chen remembered when she had personally delivered medical supplies to their plague-stricken worlds. It's just 2 years ago, the Varin collectives. Representative remained silent, but its skin color shifted to patterns that Chen's briefings told her meant smug approval. Your species is too aggressive. Zecthoria continued, too unpredictable and too willing to use violence as a solution too. Problems that require careful diplomatic consideration. Chen wanted to laugh, but kept her face professionally blank. She had sat through 17 months of council debates about the Zindari swarm crisis, while human ships had actually been out. They're fighting and dying to hold the line. We opened our alliance to you when you were barely capable of faster-than-light travel, another council member added. From somewhere in the upper tiers, we offered you guidance and friendship and the wisdom of civilizations millions of years older than yours. And instead of learning from us, the Torgothi delegate interrupted, you built weapons that terrify even our military analysts. Chen finally spoke, and her voice was calm and clear. We saved your species from extinction. The Torgothi delegate's head appendages twitched with irritation.
Ow.
You weaponized our star system in the process and left technology in our space that we still don't fully understand. We ended the separation war, Chen added, by demonstrating a capacity for systematic violence that no council species has shown in 10,000 years. Zecthoria replied. Chen nodded once, slowly. There was no point in arguing with them anymore. Humanity had learned something important over the past century of galactic politics. These ancient species had grown comfortable in their millions of years of peace. They had forgotten what it meant to face real threats. They had forgotten what it took to survive when talking stopped working. When do we leave? Chen asked. Simply, the chamber went quiet. They had expected arguments or pleading or angered instead. They got calm acceptance, and that seemed to unsettle them more than any protest would have. All human colonies in council space must be evacuated within 1 solar cycle, Zecthoria said after a pause. All human vessels will be escorted to your territorial borders, and all trade agreements and defensive pacts are hereby voided. Understood, Chen said. She turned to walk toward the massive doors that led out of the chamber behind her. She could hear the council members murmuring among themselves in dozens of languages just before she reached the doors. Chen stopped and looked back over her shoulder. High Arbiter, she called out, I have one question, if you'll permit it. Zecthoria's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been curiosity. Speak. Last year when the Zendari swarm breached the Outer Rim defenses, who held the defensive line while this council debated the proper diplomatic response? Silence filled the chamber, and when the Varin Collective's Star Harvester fleet moved into the Deneb sector and threatened 6 inhabited systems, who actually stopped them while your committees formed subcommittees to study the issue? Or silence? Chen let the questions hang in the air for a long moment. That's what I thought, she said quietly. You want us gone and we'll go, but I want you to remember this moment when it comes. Is that a threat, Ambassador? Zecthoria asked, and its voice had an edge to it now. Smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. No, High Arbiter, she replied. It's not a threat at all, because we're not the ones you should be worried about. She paused. It's a warning. For you, about what happens when you remove the only species in this alliance that remembers how to fight. We have military forces. Someone protested from the upper tiers. You have ships designed to look impressive at parades, Chen countered. You have crews trained in protocol and procedure? And you have commanders who've never seen actual combat, because for the last century we handled that part for you. You overestimate your importance." The Vrin delegate said coldly. Maybe Chen admitted. "I guess you'll find out, won't you?" She turned back toward the door's ambassador. Chenzek Thoria called after her. "The Council hopes this separation can be conducted with dignity and mutual respect." Chen didn't turn around this time. "You voted to expel us," she said over her shoulder. "We'll leave with exactly as much respect as that decision deserves." The doors opened before her, massive slabs of metal and composite materials that had stood for 1,000,000 years as she walked through them. Chen heard one young delegate ask in a confused voice, "Why isn't she angry?" The question followed her into the corridor beyond. Why wasn't she angry? Because anger was a waste of energy, and humanity had learned to be efficient with their emotions. Because Earth's leadership had prepared for this possibility and already had plans in motion. Because in her briefcase, Chen carried authorization codes for protocols that would reshape human space in ways the Council couldn't imagine. Yet the doors closed behind her with a sound like thunder in the corridor outside. Chen activated her secure communication link. "Admiral Okonkwo," she said quietly. "The vote went as predicted." "Understood." "Ambassador," came the reply. "Initiating evacuation protocols now. They gave us 1 solar cycle. Will be done in 6 months," Okonkwo said, and Chen could hear the steel in her voice. "And we'll leave everything intact, just like we discussed." "Perfect." Chen said. She walked toward her transport, thinking about what came next. The Council thought they were removing a problem. They had no idea. They were creating something far more dangerous than humanity had ever been, while under their oversight. Humanity that owed them nothing. Humanity with no rules, except their rules. Except their own humanity that would remember this betrayal for generations. As her transport lifted off from the Council station, Chen looked back at the massive structure one last time. "Go then," she whispered to herself. Fit was the beginning of humanity's answer. The end of the galaxy, as the Council knew it. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Hems Indomitable, watching the tactical display with eyes that had seen 30 years of military service. 18 points of light marked the human colonies scattered across Council space. Each one represented millions of lives that needed to be moved. DH1 represented years of work and dreams that humanity was leaving behind. Status report. She commanded. Her executive officer, Commander Park, stepped forward with a datapad. "New Kyoto evacuation is 95% complete, and the last transports are loading now. Rigel 7. The shipyards are empty, Admiral, but all the infrastructure is intact." As ordered, Okonkwo nodded. The Council had expected riots and resistance and desperate attempts to cling to what humanity had built. Instead, they were getting military precision. Every colony evacuated in orderly fashion. Every sesendry piece of equipment cataloged and left behind. Every structure maintained and powered and ready for new occupants there. "Confused, ma'am," Park said quietly. "Intelligence reports indicate Council observers don't understand why we're not taking anything with us." "Let them wonder," Okonkwo replied. She pulled up the view from New Kyoto on the main screen. The colony stretched across a valley between 2 mountain ranges. Humans had landed there 20 years ago, on a world the Council had deemed unsuitable for habitation. Too much gravity, they said, to unstable geologically, they warned. Humanity had looked at the challenges and built anyway now. The streets were empty, but the lights still burned, and the fusion reactors still hummed, and the terraforming equipment still worked to make the air breathable, all of it. "Left behind, Admiral, we have requests from several colonists asking permission to stay," Park said. "About 3% of the total population across all colonies." Okonkwo felt something twist in her chest, but kept her voice steady. "Their choice and their right as free citizens, but make sure they understand what they're choosing. Already done, ma'am, and they know." The last transport lifted from New Kyoto's surface, trailing atmospheric disturbance as it climbed toward orbit. Okonkwo watched it dock with the colony ship. Exodus 7, and marked another location as complete on her display. 17 more to go behind her. The communications officer spoke up. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Council observer ship, and they're requesting an explanation for why we're leaving the colonial infrastructure intact. Tell them we have nothing more to say." Okonkwo replied, "Yes, ma'am." The council wanted answers. They wanted to understand human thinking and human strategy. Would get neither cross-council space. The pattern repeated itself. In colony after colony, humans packed their personal belongings and their family records and their portable technology then. They walked away from everything else. The Deneb mining station stood empty with automated systems still extracting rare minerals. From the asteroid belts, the medical research facility on Threshold 9 remained operational with its advanced laboratories and experimental equipment, all functioning perfectly. Agricultural colonies left their crops growing in the fields and their processing plants ready for harvest. Every human-built installation in council space suddenly stood abandoned but fully functional. It was eerie. It was calculated on. It was sending a message. The council was only beginning to understand. On the bridge of the indomitable Okonkwo, received reports from the other evacuation fleet commanders. Admiral Mole Chen from the eastern sector reported 80% completion. Admiral Rodriguez from the rimward colonies confirmed 90%. Admiral Nakamura from the core territories was already done and heading home. All ships prepare for jump to the rendezvous point. Okonkwo ordered around, where the Indomitable's crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had drilled for this scenario dozens of times. In the past, Earth's leadership had known the council would eventually move against them. The only question had been when, as the fleet assembled, Okonkwo composed a message and transmitted it across all council communication networks. It was brief, direct, and approved by Earth's unified government before the evacuation had even begun. "You wanted us gone and we're going," the message read. "Everything we've built in your space is yours now to use or ignore as you see fit, and you won't get our help maintaining it." The message was signed simply, Humanity. Within hours, the responses started coming. The Torgothi sent a formal request for technical assistance with their orbital fusion cores. Response from Earth was 2 words, go. Then the Vrin Collective asked for help understanding the automated systems at Wriggle 7. Shipyards, same response, go. Then a dozen other species sent inquiries and requests and offers to negotiate. Every single one received the same answer to words that became Humanity's response to everything the council asked. Go. Then it spread across the galactic networks like fire. Humans had made it their universal reply: no elaboration and no explanation and no discussion. Just those 2 words delivered with the finality of a door closing. Okonkwo watched the last colonial fleet depart from council space and felt a strange mixture of emotions: sadness, outboard for what they were leaving behind, pride in how efficiently her people had handled the exodus, on something else, something harder. In colder anticipation, the council thought they had solved a problem by expelling humanity. They had actually created something far more dangerous. Say humanity with no obligations to galactic law, humanity with no need to restrain itself for diplomatic purposes, humanity that remembered exactly who had betrayed them. "All fleets are clear of council space," Admiral Park reported. "Set course for Sol." Okonkwo commanded maximum speed. "What about the observer ships following us?" "Ignore them, and they'll turn back at the border." The Indomitable's drives engaged, and the massive warship began accelerating toward home behind them. Council space grew smaller in the view screens. Ahead of them lay human territory, and the future humanity would build without council oversight. Okonkwo pulled up a classified document on her private terminal project. Prometheus Project, Avalanche Project, Sovereign Sky Initiatives that had been on hold while humanity remained in the council weapon systems that were too aggressive for diplomatic approval, ship designs that were too militaristic for allied space research, programs that pushed boundaries. The council found uncomfortable. All of them approved now, all of them moving forward. Council had removed humanity's leash now. They would learn what that actually meant, Admiral Park said quietly. Permission to speak freely. "Granted, do you think they'll regret this decision?" Okonkwo considered the question, thought about the Zindari swarm, still lurking in dark space, thought about the various threats the council barely acknowledged because humanity had always handled them quietly, thought it's about what would happen when those threats emerged and found no human ships standing in their way. "Yes, Commander," she finally said. "I think they'll regret it very much. And will we help them when they ask?" Okonkwo's expression was hard. "They won't be asking, Commander, because they already told us to go, and we're going to let them remember that choice. The fleet jumped to faster than light. Speeds 18 colonial populations heading home 4 to 7 million humans leaving Council space and behind them, a power vacuum that the galaxy's ancient civilizations had no idea how to fill. The exodus was complete. The message was sent into humanity's answer echoed across the stars. Go then. 6 months after humanity left Council space, the changes began appearing in small ways that most species didn't notice at first. The VN Collective stock markets opened each day with less activity than before, trading volumes that used to surge. With aggressive human investment strategies, now moved sluggishly through predictable patterns, the VN trade. Ministers gathered in their crystal towers and reviewed the quarterly reports with growing unease. Where are the volatility spikes? Senior Minister Krath asked his subordinates. Gone, came the answer. The human hedge funds withdrew all their positions before the exodus in the commodity futures markets. Stagnant without human traders, Krath's skin shifted to colors indicating frustration. It's just temporary adjustment and we'll adapt to the new normal. But the numbers kept declining week after week, month after month. Then the research centers of a dozen worlds scientists began noticing different problems. The Andromeda Institute released its quarterly compilation of cutting-edge discoveries. Usually, it's 3,000 pages of breakthrough research. This quarter, the publication was barely 200 pages long. Dar Threxnell held the thin document in her gripping appendages and felt something like dread settle over her. Where are the human papers? She asked her research partner. They stopped submitting to our journals, he replied. All their research is now published in human-only databases, but we're collaborating on the dimensional bridging project, and we need their theoretical work too. It terminated all collaborative projects last month, her partner interrupted. Sent formal notices and ended every joint research initiative across the entire Council scientific community. Threxnell accessed the human research databases she had used for years. Access denied. Region locked to human space only. This is insane, she said. Science doesn't have borders, and research should be shared. Tell that to the Council that expelled them. Her partner replied bitterly. The entertainment networks discovered their own version of the silence human. Music had dominated galactic charts for 3 decades. Human literature had won prestigious awards and had been translated into 200 alien languages. Human films and shows had become cultural touchstones across Council space. All of it stopped. The feeds went dark overnight. Young Quellen named Thrix, who had grown up watching human science fiction, tried to access the latest episode of his favorite series. Access denied. He tried human music streaming services. Blocked. He tempted to purchase human books through the Galactic Marketplace. Not available in your region, but I was in the middle of the story. Thrix protested to anyone who would listen. Nobody had answers. The humans had simply withdrawn their cultural products from alien markets completely, permanently. On the military side of things, the situation was more immediately concerning. General Korthax of the Vexian Defense Forces sat in his command center, staring at tactical displays that showed the galactic eastern frontier. Red zones marked areas of active threat. Yellow zones indicated areas requiring monitoring. The entire border region facing Zindari swarm territory had shifted from yellow to red over the past 6 months. Explain this, Korthax demanded of his intelligence chief. Human patrol routes previously covered this entire sector, Chief said, pointing to the map. They ran constant interdiction missions and killed swarm scouts before they could report back detailed intelligence on Council defenses. And now the swarm knows. This sector is unguarded. Korthax felt his carapace prickle with alarm. Deploy our border patrol fleet immediately, sir. Our fleet is optimized for peacekeeping and ceremonial duties, and we don't have ships designed for actual combat operations. Then requisition combat vessels from the shipyards. His intelligence chief made a gesture, indicating helplessness. The shipyards at Rigel 7 are offline, sir. And the human engineers who knew how to operate them are gone, so build new ones using what designs? Human military shipbuilding used proprietary technology we don't fully understand, and it will take us decades to reverse engineer their construction. Methods. Korthax stood abruptly. Are you telling me that the entire eastern frontier is now vulnerable because we expelled one species? I'm telling you that one species was handling border security for a third of Council's space, and we never properly appreciated what they were doing. In the Council Chamber's High Arbiter, Zecthoria was beginning to understand the full scope of what humanity had actually provided. The Arbiter called an emergency session, and representatives from 300 species gathered to discuss the growing problems. The economic disruption is significant. The Vryn delegate reported we're seeing market stagnation across multiple sectors. The scientific community is experiencing a severe reduction in research output, added the Torgothi representative. And our military analysts are warning about security gaps in multiple frontier zones, General Korthax, said grimly Zachoria S. Crystalline form pulsed with colors indicating stress. Surely these are temporary problems, and we'll adapt, will we? Asked a voice from the upper tiers. It was Ambassador Theln of the Quellan Confederacy, a species that had always been neutral during the debates about humanity. Been reviewing the data, Thelm continued, and I'm seeing a pattern that concerns me. Explain. Zecthoria commanded humanity didn't just provide military protection or economic activity or technological innovation. Theln said they provided something more fundamental, which is drive, Theln replied. Ambition and intensity and the willingness to push boundaries that the rest of us stopped pushing millions of years ago. The chamber fell silent. They worked not because something was easy, but because it was hard, Theln continued. They took risks we considered foolish, and they solved problems we had declared unsolvable. And they brought an energy to everything they did that made the rest of us uncomfortable. They were aggressive, someone protested. They were alive, Thelm countered. Truly alive in a way that we haven't been for a very long time. Zecthoria's form flickered with an emotion the translators identified as unease. What are you suggesting, Ambassador Theln? That we've become so comfortable in our ancient civilizations that we forgot what it takes to actually survive in a hostile universe, Theln said. Forgot that peace isn't natural, and order isn't automatic, and safety requires constant vigilance. The humans reminded us of those things? No, Theln replied. The humans did those things for us, while we sat here debating proper procedures. Another long silence filled the chamber. Finally, the Torgothi delegate spoke. They'll come back, and they need our markets and our resources, do they? Zecthoria asked. Quietly, the question hung in the air when they left. They didn't take anything. Zecthoria continued. They left behind entire colonies and shipyards and research facilities, a gesture of goodwill, perhaps, someone suggested, or a demonstration, Zecthoria said. They left it all behind because they don't need it anymore. The Arbiter pulled up long-range sensor data from the borders of human space. Our observation posts are reporting unusual activity in Sol System, Zecthoria said. Massive construction projects and new ship designs and energy signatures we've never seen before. The display showed fuzzy images of human shipyard structures being built on a scale that dwarfed anything in Council space vessels under construction that looked nothing like the ships humanity had used while under Council oversight. They're building something new, Zecthoria said. Something we won't have access to and won't understand and won't be able to counter if it comes to conflict. Why would it come to conflict? Vryn delegate asked. We expelled them, but we're not at war. Not yet, General Korthax said darkly, but nature abhors a vacuum, and we've created a massive power. Vacuum in our security structure. The swarm will test it, his intelligence chief added. And when they do? Someone asked. Korthax's answer was blunt. Then we'll learn exactly what we lost when we told humanity to go across Council space. The silence continued. No human traders in the markets, no human researchers in the laboratories, no human ships on patrol routes, no human music in the entertainment feeds. The galaxy had grown comfortable with human presence over the past century. They had gotten used to human intensity and human solutions and human protection. Now it was Ganand. The absence was louder than the presence had ever been. They're not coming back, are they? A young delegate asked Zecthoria after the session ended. The Arbiters' crystalline form showed colors of resignation. No, and I don't think they are. What do? We do what we should have done from the beginning, Zecthoria replied. Learn to stand on our own, and we prepare for the consequences of our choice. And if we can't, Zecthoria had no answer for that, Tin. The silence that humanity left behind. The Council was finally hearing the sound of their own vulnerability. 18 months after humanity's departure from Lamont, Council space, the Zendari swarm emerged from dark space in numbers that made every military analyst's worst projections look optimistic. 1,000 bioships materialized at the galactic rim. Exactly where human patrol routes used to maintain constant vigilance, the swarm didn't send scouts, they didn't probe defenses. They came in full invasion strength with a clear objective: conquest. The Vexian colonies died, first 15 billion souls across. 12 worlds the defense platforms humanity had built held for 3 days automated. Systems fighting with programmed efficiency, but without human rapid response teams to coordinate the defense, and without human engineers to adapt tactics in real time. The platforms fell silent one by one. General Korthax watched the tactical displays in his command center and felt something break inside him. "Get me the council immediately," he commanded. The emergency session convened within hours. Species represented 300 civilizations that had collectively forgotten how to face existential threats. "We need to mobilize the entire council fleet," Korthax demanded. "Our forces are still assembling," came the response from the military. "Coordination committee, full deployment will require 6 weeks. "Those colonies don't have 6 days," Korthax shouted. The
Act
chamber erupted in arguments and counter-arguments debates. It's about proper procedure discussions, about authorization protocols, everything that humanity had always ignored when action was required. High Arbiter Zekthoria finally called for order. "Contact Earth," the Arbiter commanded. "Invoke the mutual defense." "There is no mutual defense pact." The legal attach interrupted. "We voided all treaties when we expelled them." Zekthoria's crystalline form pulsed with something that might have been panic. "Then offer them reinstatement and full council membership with all privileges restored, and if they refuse, offer them whatever they want," Zekthoria said desperately. Message went out on all priority channels addressed to Earth's unified government, offering apologies and reinstatement in trade, concessions offering technology sharing, and territorial concessions offering everything the council could think to offer. For 3 days, there was no response. During those 3 days, the swarm advanced deeper into council space. The death toll climbed to 50 billion. Entire civilizations that had existed for millions of years were being consumed. Council forces engaged in scattered skirmishes, but were pushed back every time. Ships, now designed for parades and ceremonies, proved useless against swarm biovessels built for one purpose: killing. On the 4th day, a response arrived from Earth towards Go. Then the council chambers descended into chaos. "How dare they!" Someone screamed, "We're dying," and they refused to help. Another voice added, "They're monsters." The third delegate shouted. Only Zekthoria remained silent. The Arbiter understood humanity wasn't being cruel, they were being consistent. The council had told them to go, humanity had gone. Now the council was learning what that actually meant. "They'll let us die." The Torgathy delegate said in horror. "No," Zekthoria replied quietly. "They'll let us face what we chose when we expelled them. We made a mistake." "Yes," the Arbiter agreed. "And now we pay for it." The council fleet finally assembled at Deneb Core 300 vessels representing the combined might of 300 civilizations. They faced 3,000 swarm bioships in what historians would later call the Battle of Deneb. Karit was a massacre. The council had spent millions of years perfecting diplomacy and trade and cultural exchange. They had forgotten how to wage war. Of their ships had impressive sensors and comfortable crew quarters and beautiful external aesthetics, but they couldn't fight. Admiral Keltras commanded the council flagship Eternal Unity and watched his fleet disintegrate around him. Second in command suggested retreat. To where? Keltras asked bitterly. "This is the fight we chose when we expelled the only species that remembered how to fight." "We were wrong," his second said. "Yes, and wrong doesn't matter when you're dead." Eternal Unity took heavy damage. Life support was failing. Weapon systems were off. Keltras prepared for his ship's final moments. Then something appeared on long-range sensors, new contacts, hundreds of them arriving through jump points in perfect military formation. Human ships, but not the vessels the council remembered from before the expulsion. These were different, larger, and more angular, and built with a singular purpose that was evident in every line of their warships. No ceremonial decorations, no comfortable crew quarters, just weapons and armor and engine ships, designed by a species that the council had told to leave and that had spent 18 months building without restrictions. Lead vessel opened a communication channel. "Admiral, Sarah Okonkwo's face appeared. She looked older than the last time the council had seen her harder council fleet. "This is HEMS Retribution," Okonkwo said. "We're here to engage the swarm." Admiral Okonkwo Keltris gasped. "Thank you for save it." Okonkwo cut him off. "We're not here for you, and we're here because the swarm is in our way, and your way to what?" "That's not your concern," Okonkwo replied. "You're in the combat zone, so either fight or retreat because we have work to do." The human fleet didn't wait for a response. They accelerated toward the swarm formation. The engagement that followed was unlike anything the Council forces had ever witnessed. Human ships moved with predatory efficiency. Their weapons were devastating technology that hadn't existed before. The expulsion energy weapons that tore through swarm bioarmor, kinetic impactors that shattered swarm vessels, tactical nuclear devices deployed with surgical precision, and tactics brutal and efficient, and evolved from a simple doctrine: identify enemy, destroy enemy, move to next enemy. No hesitation, no debate, just war, fought with absolute commitment. The swarm tried to adapt. They had consumed thousands of species across the galaxy. They had encountered every council military strategy, but they had never fought humanity. Unleashed humanity with no political oversight, humanity with no diplomatic concerns, humanity that had spent 18 months preparing for exactly this kind of fight. Within 6 hours, the swarm fleet was broken. Survivors fled back into dark space, and the human fleet simply left no requests for thanks, no demands for payment, no political maneuvering. They came, they fought, they departed, leaving one unmistakable message: this is what you rejected. This is what we are. We didn't save. We saved ourselves, and you benefited incidentally. Keltris sat in his damaged command center and watched the human fleet disappear on his sensors around him. His crew worked to repair critical systems behind him. The remnants of the council fleet limped toward safe harbors. "They could have let us die," his second-in-command said. "Quietly, they almost did." Keltris replied. "Why didn't they?" Keltris pulled up the tactical recordings, watched the human ships tear through the swarm with methodical violence. "Because they're still human," he finally said. "They'll fight threats to the galaxy because that's who they are. But they won't do it for us anymore." "No," Keltris agreed. "Never for us again." He composed a report for the council, detailed analysis of the battle aspect of human military capabilities, recommendations for future interactions. The last line of his report was simple: "Humanity has surpassed us in every military metric, and they no longer need or want our approval, and we should be grateful they still consider the swarm a mutual threat." When the council reconvened to discuss the battles Icthoria presented Keltris' findings, the chamber was quiet as representatives absorbed the implications there. "Stronger than us now," someone finally said. "They were always stronger," Icthoria corrected. "We just never let them show it. What do? "We survive," the Arbiter replied. "We rebuild our defenses, and we learn to protect ourselves, and we hope that when the next crisis comes, humanity's interests still align with ours, and if they don't..." Icthoria had no answering. Human Space Admiral Okonkwo filed her own report brief, and factual swarm fleet destroyed, human casualties minimal, mission accomplished. Earth's government reviewed the report and authorized the next phase project. Sovereign Sky moved to full production. The Terran Sphere Alliance welcomed 3 new species, and humanity continued building a future where they needed nobody's permission. The Council had told them to go. They had gone. In going, they had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Not conquerors, not saviors, just survivors who remembered how to fight and who would never again subordinate their survival to anyone else's approval. 5 years after the expulsion, Ambassador Chen stood once more in the council chambers, but everything was different. Now she wasn't a supplicant anymore. She was a foreign dignitary representing a sovereign power that the council no longer had authority over. The chamber seemed smaller, somehow less imposing, or perhaps Chen had simply grown beyond being impressed by ancient architecture and the weight of millions of years of civilization. High Arbiter Icthoria's crystalline form showed visible fracture lines from years of accumulated stress. The perfect surface that had gleamed during Chen's expulsion now looked worn, tired. Ambassador Chen, Icthoria said, "Thank you for accepting our invitation to discuss renewed diplomatic relations." Chen nodded. Politely, High Arbiter, and your message indicated a desire to re-establish partnership between humanity and the Council. Yes, Zecthoria replied. We wish to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchange programs, and perhaps even security cooperation, Chen. Let the silence stretch for a moment then, she said one word. No. The chamber stirred 300 species shifting in their seats. Zecthoria's form pulsed with confusion. No. Yeah, but you haven't heard our specific proposals. I don't need to hear them. Chen replied calmly. You want access to human technology and human military protection and human economic energy. We're prepared to offer substantial concessions in return. The Torgothi delegate interjected. We're not interested in your concessions, Chen said, but surely. Chen raised a hand, and the delegate fell silent. The gesture was casual, but everyone in the chamber felt the shift in power dynamics. This was not the desperate human ambassador who had stood before them 5 years ago. This was something else. Let me be very clear about where we stand, Chen said. 5 years ago, you told humanity to leave Council space. We made a mistake. Zecthoria admitted. Yes, you did, Chen agreed. And we left and we built our own networks and our own alliances and our own future. Surely there's room for cooperation between. We don't need you anymore, Chen interrupted. That's what you need to understand. The words fell like hammers, simple and direct, and devastating. Humanity will maintain basic diplomatic relations with the Council, Chen continued. We'll honor standard interstellar law, and we'll engage in limited trade at market rates. Sounds like a foundation for, but partnership, Chen cut in again. Alliance trust. You broke those things, High Arbiter, and unlike your species, we remember. Zecthoria's fracture line seemed to deepen. The swarm still threatens the galaxy, and there will be other crises, and surely we can find common ground against common enemies. Chen considered this. When threats arise that affect human interests, we'll respond according to our needs. She said sometimes that might align with Council interests, and sometimes it won't. So this is punishment. Someone asked from the upper tiers. No. Chen replied, this is consequence, and you wanted to learn if you could maintain galactic order without humanity's dangerous aggression. So consider this our gift to you. What gift? The opportunity to prove you can, Chen said. She turned to Leve. Young Quellan delegate called out. What about the students? The cultural programs? The scientific collaboration we used to have? Chen paused. Her expression softened. Slightly. Individual exchanges can continue, she said. Any Council citizen who wishes to visit human space or study at our institutions or collaborate with our researchers is welcome to apply through normal channels, but institutional partnerships. Zecthoria asked. Are for institutions we trust? Chen replied. You taught us that trust is earned, not given, and you'll have to earn it back. Is that even possible? Chen met the Arbiter's gaze directly. I honestly don't know, High Arbiter, and maybe it is and maybe it isn't, but that's for you to discover what it is. Take time, Chen said. Consistency and demonstrated commitment to principles that don't change based on political convenience. We could begin by actions, High Arbiter, not words, Chen interrupted. We've heard enough words to last several lifetimes. She walked toward the massive doors. Just before exiting, she stopped and looked back one final time. The galaxy is changing, she said. The old order, where ancient civilizations set the rules by default, is ending, and what's replacing it? Zecthoria asked. A new order, Chen replied. One where current capability matters more than ancient history, and where those who can't adapt get left behind in humanity's role in this new order? Chen smiled. We'll be writing the rules this time, and not asking permission to do so. The doors closed behind her. The Council chamber fell into heavy silence. Finally, a delegate spoke. What do we do now? Zecthoria's answer was quiet and resigned. We adapt or we fade into irrelevance. Can we compete with them in military strength? No, Zecthoria said. In technological innovation? Unlikely. And in economic dynamism? They've surpassed us then. We've lost. Not yet, the Arbiter replied. We still have millions of years of accumulated knowledge and diplomatic networks across the galaxy and cultural influence that spans civilizations. Will that be enough? It will have to be in human space. The news of Chen's speech spread quickly. Terran Sphere held a summit. Smaller species, who had felt marginalized by Council politics, gathered around humanity's leadership. Quellan Confederacy sent full ambassadors. The Rigelian Union requested military cooperation agreements even. Some of the minor council species quietly opened diplomatic channels Earths. Unified government reviewed the requests, approved most of them. Manned continued building project. Prometheus advanced a deployment phase weapons technology that made the ships at Deneb Core look outdated project. Avalanche entered testing faster than light. Drives that didn't require jump points project sovereign sky. Expanded shipyards that could produce vessels at scales the council couldn't match hand. Underneath it all, a simple philosophy: those who stand with us will be stood by those who turn us away. Will be left to their own devices, no exceptions, no compromises. The galaxy was entering a new age where ancient authority meant less than current capability, an age where the council still existed and still had power, but no longer commanded automatic deference, an age where humanity set the tone not through conquest, not through domination, but through the simple act of walking away and proving that sometimes the best response to betrayal was building something better. Ambassador Theln of the Quellan Confederacy visited Earth 6 months after. Chen's speech met with human leaders, discussed cooperation. As Theln prepared to depart, the Quellan ambassador asked a question: do you hate them? The council species that expelled you? The human official considered this. No. Came the answer: hate requires energy, better spent elsewhere. Then what do you feel? Indifference, the official replied. They made their choice and we made ours, and now we all live with the consequences, but you saved them. From the swarm, we saved ourselves, the official corrected. They just happened to be in the same battle, and next time will depend on next time's circumstances. Theln understood humanity wasn't cruel, they were practical, they had learned. The lesson the council taught them: trust broken cannot be easily repaired, and broken trust changes everything that follows. As Theln's ship departed Earth, the ambassador looked back at the blue world below. Around it, shipyards stretched across orbital space vessels under construction that represented humanity's vision for their future they would build with or without council approval. The galaxy's old civilizations had taught humanity many things during their brief membership: diplomacy and patience in the long view of history, but humanity had taught the galaxy something too: that survival requires more than wisdom, it requires will. And when will meets wisdom, the combination is unstoppable. Back in council space, Secthoria reviewed reports from across the Alliance. Economic indicators showed slow recovery, military readiness was improving, research output was gradually increasing, but nothing matched the levels from when humanity had been present. The Arbiter pulled up intelligence reports on human space. What the analysis showed was both impressive and concerning. The Terran sphere was growing not through conquest, but through voluntary association, species joining because they saw in humanity something the council no longer offered: dynamism, innovation, the willingness to take risks, and, above all, the commitment to protect those who stood with them. Secthoria composed a private memo, ever to be shared, just personal thoughts recorded for posterity. Expelled humanity because they frightened us. The memo began: we told ourselves it was about their aggression, or their unpredictability, or their refusal to accept our guidance. But the truth is simpler. They reminded us of what we used to be before comfort made us complacent. They showed us that we had become administrators of peace rather than guardians of it. And when they held up that mirror, we chose to break the mirror rather than examine our reflection. Now they're gone, and we face the galaxy on our own. Perhaps we'll rise to the challenge, perhaps we'll rediscover the strength we forgot we needed, or perhaps we'll fade slowly into history as the species who chose comfort over growth. Time will tell. Secthoria saved the memo, looked out at the stars beyond the council chambers, and wondered which version of the future was coming: the one where the council adapted, or the one where they became a footnote in galactic history. Either way, humanity's answer remained the same: simple, final, and changing. Go then.